I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me.
Hi guys, and welcome to the third. Is it third?
Fourth? No,
Third.
this is the third.
Third at
You're
this
right.
point.
You're right.
Maybe it is the. Yeah, no,
No.
it's the fourth.
Oh, that's the
'Cause we
fourth.
did-
Yeah.
yeah,
The
okay.
thing and the other thing and the
No, no.
loop-de-doop. Yeah.
Right. That was
Exactly.
a great video, figuring out how to relate that to photography.
Yeah.
Loop de doops. Hey guys, I hope you're having a lovely day today. Today we're going to talk about focal lengths in photography
And feelings.
and feelings.
Feelings. Like how the lens feels and how you feel about the lens. And how the feeling of the lens transports the viewer into this wonderful, magical world of street portraiture.
Sometimes I rub my lens, and I have feelings.
You
about
gotta
it.
be, you gotta be loving.
Like I feel intimacy.
Yeah.
A little bit.
You gotta know your lens. So, I mean, if you don't get intimate with your lens, how do you really know it?
Right.
You know?
And I mean,
When you're cleaning your lens, I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta do that alone in the dark.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Candles. I
Yeah.
mean, my wife gets a little bit upset at night because she's like, "Hey, come to bed," and I'm like, I'm in the other bed with my lens, but it has to happen.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot of communication.
That's important.
To-
Communication with your loved ones and with your lens.
Right. That's the first nugget. You can tweet that. We'll put that on the bottom. Just kidding, we won't. So I'm gonna go through just a little bit of a rundown on focal lengths and the feel that they generally create. Well, feel free to add any input at any time.
I will
As
sprinkle
always.
a little bit in.
Sprinkle.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I might just keep that seasoning back because I think you got this one for a little bit.
Okay.
here.
Well, I'm just letting you know. You just feel free to express your feelings.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Woo! That probably peaked. Okay. Wide lenses offer a more photojournalistic type of raw look to your photos. So I'm thinking like homelessness, drug addiction, car crash, I don't know, war photography, like really rawness, like telling stories, just down into the mud all over your lens. Feelings, rawness. That is a wide angle lens. Will, any input?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's like beyond to skip through too much of the jargon. It's like you're shooting wider, so your depth of field is much deeper at any focal length. So like it's more how your eye sees a scene. It transports the viewer, like in a photojournalistic sense, into the scene. It
Right.
feels like you're in the environment, especially like when you have some subjects close in the foreground. The scene just wraps around you, and that's really what you're trying to create, is this kind of intimate, strong awareness of the environment, kind of a shock value, which I think a lot of times in the best photojournalism, that's what's in it. So yeah, I agree.
A lot of grittiness, a lot of
Yes.
environment in the background. I mean,
And a
like,
little bit of exaggeration of things
Right.
through the focal length, and just kind of really, punch you in the face.
punch you in the face. That's excellent. That's a good feeling. Wide angle lenses punch you in the face. By wide angle, of course, we mean, wide can go all the way to like freaking 12 millimeters. But
Like-
generally
like
speaking,
20 to 35.
yeah, 20, 24, 28, 35, 18 if you want to go crazy. You can go really wide too, 12. That's the lens, right? 10.
Yeah, you could go 12, 10, like a 10 fisheye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so those are the wide angle lenses, and that's a very, very important feel to portray if that is what you want, and that will definitely help you create that. I love that feeling. I always love these amazing, like Pulitzer, like war photos, just really powerful stuff there. The next one is 50 millimeter lenses, and I just say 50 millimeter because that is the street photography focal length, right? I mean, that's where it's at.
Except I don't use it, but it is.
For me. No. But everybody generally is like, that's the thing. So there's no like, I'm not going to call it a mid-range. Hey, mid-range? That's a cool band name. Mid-range lens, I'm going to call it a 50 millimeter lens. And it offers a more polished feel, less environment. Well, there is a nice balance between environment and person. So it is the most, I would say that a 50 millimeter lens is the most versatile focal length that you can be at in street photography. You can do all of the above that we will go over today with a 50mm lens. Like,
It's like the Goldilocks lens.
The Goldilocks.
Like, it's not too short, it's not too long, it's just right.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
Like the Goldilocks.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
High
like
five.
just right.
That was Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson, okay. So telephoto lenses offer a very polished or cinematic look. It makes your face look more flattering a lot of the times, which is good
Which is pretty nice
for what you want to create.
Yeah, if you want to make people look pretty.
Yes. If you want to make them look, if you're going for a more street fashion approach, or a more, I talked about it before on here. There are amazing, amazing photos that were created with a long lens that looks like it was straight out of a movie. I love cinematic street photography. And there's so much, you can get so much mood there. Photos of couples kissing, that's an awesome thing. Photos of people in taxis, I don't know, New York. I'm just picturing
like
this.
removal. I think it's
Yeah.
like a lot of it too is like a removal of an environment. There's
Right.
like more and more emphasis on the subject. So I think that's kind of how the range goes. Is like scene, like a wide angle lens, you have to build a scene, and unless you just put the subject super close, there's this big scene. The 50 gives you that balance in between the two, and the last one's really about the bokeh. So much more bokeh, even at lower ISOs. Focal f-stops.
F-stops. You got it.
Anyways,
we don't know how to photography.
No, we don't know how to actually take pictures. So you get more of that. So it's just the subject becomes much more centralized when you shoot a telephoto, and you're kind of removing the environment from the subject a little bit.
You always talk about romanticizing things. It's a very romantic focal length, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just because, it pulls you into a more intimate moment. You and the subject are more of the interaction, not the subject, and the environment. It's very tight, usually. Generally, you're trying to pull out the rest of the scene. Really fantastic for that.
Yeah. So, in all of this, just figure out I think it's important to figure out what feel you want to create for your images, for the blog that you're curating, for your project, whatever. Figure out what works best and what just completely attaches to your soul as a focal length. I've always, even though I do use a 50 and I love it to death, I've always been in love with these really wide angle raw images of important stories, environmental portraits inside houses of like a musician where he has his pianos all around him and his records and this kind of thing. That's always been a lens or a focal length, I would say, that's been very attached to my being. I remember the first time I shot with my kit lens and I pulled it all the way out to 18. I was like, this is awesome! It's so cool to be able to do that, especially back then, because all the digital cameras, the widest they would go would be like 75 millimeters. So it was cool to get my hands on that and just zoom it all the way out. It was a special photography moment in my life.
Those are some feelings.
Feelings.
Those are the feelings we're talking about that you really get from your lens. Touches your heart, and your face like that.
Touches my face with my own hands.
Yeah, as long as they're just your hands, I'm fine with it. Okay.
Yeah. We should move on.
Yeah.
Okay. So Will, talk about how how does this play out in your life, in your blog?
Okay, so basically,
share your feelings. Feel the moment, Will.
Since the very beginning, I've always shot at least 75 equivalent. So 75, 85, even for a while, like 130, which is super, super long. I don't think anyone shoots street photography with like a 130 equivalent. But I mean, for me, it's all about, like James said earlier, this kind of inherent romanticism a long lens creates. It helps you really pull the focus away from the background and suck your subject in. So I shoot street style. I shoot people I think are visually very interesting or dressed in very aesthetically pleasing ways. And I think for me, the streets can kind of be a distraction. So the telephoto does a good job. You can still make out some of the environment, so you understand the context, but it kind of romanticizes this person. It kind of captures the otherworldliness that I see of them surrounded by all these people that are kind of dressed much more plainly or more in more usual clothes. I think it just kind of it creates this kind of fantasy, and people kind of look at the pictures and go, wow, did you really shoot that downtown? Like, is that really something you saw? So for me, you know, in my work at the moment and for the past 3 years, it's really about creating a romanticized image, but a romanticized image of reality. And I think that's what the 85 gives you in your street photography is the ability to erase enough of the background while still having enough room to work. I think that's important. It's not the 85, the 130s, that's intense. That's intense to shoot street photography with, and it's pretty limiting, which can be a good thing sometimes for you. But definitely the 85's kind of the perfect lens for me, just for the effect I want to create. So, but James shoots at 50, and then he also likes to shoot wide, so he has a whole nother perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, I like to shoot wide. I don't have a lens to shoot wide because I literally just have 50, and I would love, if I had disposable income, I'd love to go ahead and get another 35, 20. I haven't decided, like we've talked about it a little bit, 28, 24 millimeter full frame lens. That's a big part of it. Now that I have a full frame camera, I would love to get that, but at the same time, I'm in love with my 50 millimeter, and it will always be my favorite lens. Is the absolute perfect lens for the photos I love to create. And for me, on my blog, I like to have this nice balance of environment and person, and the person being part of their environment is a huge part of what's going on. And I want it to be versatile enough that I can get a really nice wide shot with a little person in the background playing a violin, you know, if they're a street performer, but I also want to be able to get up close and get a very flattering face shot if someone has a really nice pair of glasses, like one of those circle glasses. I never pass those up. You know, something like that. So, be able to just have the most versatility possible to capture people's passions and people's stories, like I always talk about on my blog. So that's how it plays out for us. Now we have been talking about prime lenses this entire time, and I do want to talk about what are the advantages and disadvantages of zoom lenses. And we spoke about this a little bit before. It's like we love prime lenses so much, but I didn't want to come off as like two more hipster kids talking about prime lenses, and you know, they probably shoot film too. Polaroids. Love Polaroids.
I mean, there's a place for every lens in photography.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about, you know, I mean, there's certain types of work where a zoom's pretty necessary. But I mean, if you're starting off or you're looking to do street photography, I mean, you need to get a incredibly fast zoom. And incredibly fast zooms are incredibly expensive. So you could pick up probably like a 20, 24, 35, 50, 85, even like a 135, probably around the cost of like a 70 to 200 or like a 24 to 70 f2.8.
All the way through.
Yeah, all the way through, which is important. So, I mean, the cost component, if that's any of your issues, you should definitely stay away from zooms just because you won't be able to get, you know, the bokeh that you're going to get with a zoom. You know, you're not going to have the low light capabilities, and technically, not to get technical, but there's less glass elements in a prime, so the pictures are going to be sharper, to put it in very not specific terms.
Right. And you know, you can use an f4 to 5.6. You can use that and you can get away with it, but you're going to be sacrificing the depth of field, the shallowness of that, and being able to completely take a person, take the background, blow the background out as far as focus goes, not in terms of exposure, but as far as focus goes, take the background out of the equation, get that nice bokeh, and also you're sacrificing light, and not everybody will, because there are a lot of street photographers, candid street photographers, especially that shoot at like f9 all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and that's cool, that's awesome, but if you want to shoot low light, it's going to be very difficult to get images that you will produce with a prime lens that you you won't be able to get that with a zoom lens that is a cheap zoom lens. And there's just something about like 1.8, 2.8, just a lovely prime lens, just that look, so beautiful.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I just think too, I mean, for a lot of people for street photography, size is a constraint, you know, they want to have a slightly smaller camera. So I mean, any zoom is giant compared to, I mean, this is an incredible example of a tiny lens, but even like on any regular, you know, DSLR, all of the primes aren't that big. Even though, I mean, unless you have maybe like a 24 1.4 or something, that's
Right.
kind of a beast. But besides lenses like that, you get something a much more compact package, and it's like the old adage: if you don't have your your camera, you can't take the picture. So I think the idea of having a kit with slightly reduced size is helpful.
Yep, and
You know,
and I think the biggest thing and the biggest reason that street photographers love prime lenses is if you have a zoom lens and you're constantly going between different focal lengths, you don't get to know one focal length intimately, and that's very, very, very important. Your photography needs to be an art of muscle memory, so that when you're out on the street, something happens, you're ready. Especially if you're a candid shooter. We're both portrait shooters, but if you're a candid shooter, you have to be ready to pull it up and know the image you're going to get completely, you know, intuitively, and not have to fumble around trying to figure out, oh, should I shoot this, you know. And also your mind splits in half when you're trying to zoom in
even
and
as
out.
a street portrait photographer, I mean, the time you have, you know, even if you have 2 or 3 minutes, I mean, you don't want your main concern to be, I need to decide on my focal length first, because you have plenty of things you still have to focus on. There is enough to maintain your focus, especially if the person only gives you about 30 seconds. Like, the last thing you want to do is be like, well, you know, if I zoomed in here or here or here, and the person's like, I gotta go, and you're like, wait, and you're like, and you go home and you cry about your picture.
Right.
So
And you realize that the lens cap wasn't off.
So they have their place, but for the majority of street photography, they're pretty useless. And the only ones that are good are really, really expensive
Yeah.
and giant. Really giant.
Yeah, they're large. Yeah, and
Like
when
clubs.
you get into the expensive
Like,
ones,
I mean, they are.
they're freaking. Yeah,
they're
you're right.
giant.
You're right.
Lenses.
Like an
2.8,
if you use, I've used 70 to
7200.
70 to 200 millimeters, f2.8. They're so big.
And then
They're so heavy.
The 12 to 24 is giant. Too.
Yeah,
You can't even put a
yeah.
filter on it. The lens is so big and like bulbous. It's
It
intense.
would be an expensive custom filter
Yeah.
from customfilters.com.
Yeah, which doesn't exist. And you
doesn't.
actually just can't get a filter for it.
You just can't. It doesn't. It's not. I don't feel like it exists. I feel like we covered a lot of good ground here about feelings today. Do you feel like that?
I'm feeling pretty complete right now.
That's good.
Feeling like a complete person. I'm really tapped into my feelings, the feelings of my focal lengths. Hopefully nobody zoomed in and it's like, Will, you got a 27, which is a 40 equivalent on your camera. I thought you said you shoot that. I do, I promise. I do take pictures. So does James. You can go visit our websites. Here and there and maybe nowhere, though. Or you could just look in the little bottom box.
I feel like we're digressing.
Yes.
How do you feel about today's video? Did we bring you some important things? Or were you inspired? Leave a comment. Let us know, not just because that's the thing to do, but because we really do want to hear if we inspired you. And like it if you liked it. And subscribe if you want more of it. And that's it.
Yeah.
Got anything else?
Post your feelings for us. How'd this make you feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We're out of here. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.